Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Rochelle Davies, and I am a school nutrition program specialist with the Office of Public Instruction. And today I am going to be presenting on common administrative review findings, menu planning, and production records focused. There was a webinar last week on common administrative review findings on free and reduced applications. So just real quick, today I'm going to introduce the team, talk about meal pattern requirements and the production record requirements, and then we'll get into what we see for menu-related findings, or you might also hear them referred to as corrective action documents, or for short, we call them CADs. And then I'll get into a couple of other small mistakes that we see typically on review. So if you have not met us before, I always love to show this picture of our school nutrition programs team. It always helps to put a name to a face. On the top, we have Chris, Jackie, Pam, Clay, Camille, Aaron, and Caroline. And on the bottom, we have Allie, Kim, myself, I'm Rochelle, Deb, Bitsy, and Kelly. So there are 6 of us that travel around and visit schools. We have Caroline over here, who's based in Great Falls, and she is also our fresh fruit and vegetable program manager. Erin Turner here is based out of Bozeman. We have Jackie Roller over on this side on the top row. She is a specialist based out of Belgrade. Myself here, I am based out of Billings. Deb Jones is based out of Helena, and Kelly over here, photoshopped in, is based out of Missoula. So the 6 of us have regions assigned to us in the state. We do have this map up on our website, and you can link to it on Maps as well. So if you are in our region, we would love you to call us and touch base with us if you have any questions. Of course, you're welcome to call anyone in our office. And if you have USDA foods questions, maybe you're going to call Pam. Fresh fruit and vegetable program questions, you're probably going to call Caroline. But we do try to stick to our region as much as possible so that we can, the more we talk to you, the more we get to know you and know how your school is set up. So where you can find that on the login page on Maps, here on the home page, all of our contact information is listed, so you can find our phone numbers. And if you wanted to see that map again to see how we're broken out, if you are looking for Region 5 or Region 6, for example, you can click on this hyperlink to see what region your school is going to be in. So, okay, jumping right into it. I want to first cover what the meal pattern requirements are, so then we can talk about what some of those mistakes we see are. So I realize the font is kind of small. I apologize. I tried to highlight the big portion of this menu pattern handout that we have. There are some additional details on each of the meal patterns that I'm going to show you, so I definitely suggest reviewing those on our website. But the basics are for on the breakfast, school breakfast program, meal pattern, and of course this is for a 5-day-a-week school week. You need to offer milk, a fruit or vegetable or juice, and grains or breads. So as you can see, we have 2 numbers listed here for this grade group. This is K through 5. This would be 1 cup daily, but making sure that you get 5 cups over the week. And of course, if you're a 4-day school week, you're going to only get to 4 cups per week. You want to make sure that you are offering 1 cup of fruits or vegetables daily, and only half of that can be juice. The juice has to be 100% full strength. And this, of course, is just what you are offering. So if you are doing offer versus serve, the kiddos might only take a half a cup, but you still have to be documenting and offering them that full cup. And then we have the 1 ounce daily minimum for grains or breads. And then you can see that we need to get to 7 ounces or more for the week for our grades K through 5, 8 ounces over the week for grades 6 through 8, and 9 ounces per week for your high school grade group. You might be offering some meat or meat alternate as well in your breakfast, and that is definitely allowable. You can substitute up to 1 ounce meat alternate for 1 ounce of your grain after the daily minimum has been met for grain. You can't substitute both, or I'm sorry, 1 or 2 ounces of the meat alternate if you don't have any grain. That won't count. So again, for this time, we're looking at the National School Lunch Program meal pattern over 5 days. And here we have 5 components that need to be offered for each meal. We have milk, meat or meat alternate, vegetables, fruits, and grains. So as you can see, we have the same, we have this laid out in the same manner that in blue, we can see our 1 cup daily milk, 5 cups over the week. Same with meat alternate, 1 ounce daily for groups K through 5, 8 ounces over the week. And definitely be cognizant of, again, we're increasing for grade groups, like 9 ounces over the week for meat alternate for grades 6 through 8, and 10 ounces for your high school grade group. So as you can see here, we can get away with 1 day a week, only offering 1 ounce daily per for the meat alternate for grades 6 through 8. But in order to get that 9 ounces over the week, the rest of those days are going to have to be more than that. You're going to have to be offering 2 ounces daily. One thing I'd like to talk about real quick are the vegetable subgroups. So if you're planning out your menu by hand, definitely make sure that you're not only getting that 3/4 cup daily of vegetables, or for high school 1 cup daily for vegetables, but that you're covering all of these subgroups over the week. So you can see we have dark green, red orange, beans or legumes, our starchy group, and then everything else will fall into this other category. I'm going to show you that in just a second. If you're wondering what vegetables are going to fall into that subgroup, we have a great handout on our website that has some of these more commonly offered things for these subgroups. For example, for dark green, you can see broccoli and spinach. Maybe you're offering romaine. For starchy, we can see corn and potatoes. Red orange, we commonly see carrots or tomatoes, red peppers. But if you have a vegetable that isn't listed on this handout, I'm going to show you where to find that. So in the food buying guide, we can, let me pull up a different screen here. So if you search for the food buying guide online, I would highly suggest bookmarking it after you find it, but the USDA has what's called the Food Buying Guide for Child Nutrition Programs. After you log in, you'll be given the option to select which component you're looking for. So in this example, I have meat alternate pulled up, and I'm going to, you can view the table or export it to your desktop, which is what I prefer to do. They have these for all of the components. So here you can see that I have pulled up the food buying guide for vegetables, and if you're looking for that vegetable, scroll through. They're all listed in alphabetical order, and then you can see where it credits immediately right here. Let me go back to my slides. Sorry, it went back to the beginning. Okay, so if you have a vegetable that you are looking to see where it's going to credit on your production records, definitely take a look at the food buying guide. And see what it is listed as for crediting. Okay, so now I want to cover some production record requirements really quickly. So this is our production record on the website, and this is an example that we have filled out. I understand this is really small, so I've divided it into two pieces. So hopefully you can see this a little bit better. So in this example, we have Greek grain cherry bowl with chicken, Greek freak sauce, vegetables. We have our milk listed and our fruit listed. We love to see everything in the menu right here. This is on this whole left side is what I would call like the core pieces of your production record. We want to see the menu listed out. We want to see each component written in the applicable section, and we need to see the serving sizes. These are critical. We want to see what is there and how much of it, because this is how we're going to determine if you're meeting the meal pattern or not. We cover more about production records in other webinars if you want to learn more about the details of those. But for today's webinar, I just want to point out that we must see all these components here, and we have to see serving sizes listed. Again, this is just the bottom half of that production record. Same thing, I want to see the components listed here, serving sizes. I want to see that your milks that you're offering are circled so we can verify that you did offer the 2 varieties. And I want to see that the vegetables are broken out in the right subgroups. So sometimes we might see like beets, for example, might be mistaken as a red or orange, but they actually fall in the other category. So that's something that we would be looking for if we saw an error, that would be a teachable moment when we're on site, just to make sure that if you were counting on that to be your red orange for the week, and it didn't actually count, that would come up as a menu pattern error, and we don't want to see that happen. And then if you are offering a salad bar, make sure that you're documenting it here so that we can tell if we only get production records and we're looking at your production records and think that maybe some things are missing. We can look over here and see that, oh, there is in fact a salad bar offered. So we would want to see that production record so that we could credit you for those items served. Okay, so now getting into what do we see for findings or corrective action. So some of the things that we might see in regards to the menu would be insufficient daily components. If you didn't meet that daily component, for example, forgot that high school needs that 1 cup of vegetables, but only offering them 3/4 cup for the day. Insufficient weekly. So as I pointed out, if you're only offering 1 ounce per day every day, you might be meeting that daily minimum, but you're not going to meet the weekly minimum for some grade groups and some components. We might see that there was just a missing component, that we didn't see fruit offered with that meal, for example, or you didn't have the grain for breakfast and instead offered meat alternate. That would be considered a missing component. If you're offering greater than 50% of juice over the week. So it's really important to make sure that if you are typically doing a box of juice and a 1/2 cup of fruit every day, making sure that that juice box is 4 ounces and not maybe 6 ounces. Sometimes I see 6 ounces offered in junior high or high school. So that's quickly going to make your the bulk of what you're offering, you're going to have more juice than whole fruit, and that would be a finding. More than 2 ounces of grain-based desserts over the week. So if you're serving lots of cookies or cake, I would take a look at your I would take a look at substituting some of those out. Not only are they going to count towards your sodium and calories if we're doing a menu review, but if more than 2 ounces per week per student are served in the form of grain-based desserts, that's going to be a finding. Missing milk variety. This one can be pretty common, actually. We want to see that you have at least 2 of those allowable milk choices. So again, an unallowable milk choice is also a finding. So we want to see that you're offering 2 choices and that they're both allowable. We want to see that you're meeting the whole grain rich requirement. So currently you can serve enriched grains as long as whole grains or whole grain rich products are 50% or greater of what you're offering over the week. Another thing to keep in mind is that that's ounces per service line. So if you're offering an enriched product, but it's 2 ounces, and you typically serve 1 ounce over the week, making sure that you're noting that we're looking at not 50% of days, we're looking at 50% of the total ounces offered over the week. If you have a missing vegetable subgroup or insufficient vegetable subgroup, those can be findings too. So making sure that you hit all of those vegetable subgroups over the week and in their minimum amounts. Okay, so getting into some of the scenarios that we see, I'm going to cover incomplete documentation on production records, incorrect calculations, and implementation errors. So, incomplete documentation. You know, things happen. I totally understand if you knock over the milk onto your production record, but make sure that you make a new copy. We want to see when we come on site that every day, every meal has a production record. Unfortunately, if you don't have a production record for a meal, it's required that we reclaim all of those meals. That production record is incredibly important. That's what is basically your receipt. You are showing that you are meeting the meal pattern, meeting the requirements, and deserve to claim those meals for reimbursement. Another thing I see is not writing all of the components. So I know it's maybe something that gets done at the end of the day with the production record, making sure that everything is done, and you're probably tired and want to get out of there. But just make sure, give it the once over, make sure that you really have noted everything, because it is, you know, it's not fun when we come on site and say, oh, there was no fruit listed for this day, and you say, gosh, I know I served fruit that day, but I didn't write it down. A missing component is required fiscal action too. So definitely make sure that you are reviewing your production record and making sure that you are taking credit for everything that you did that day. Another one that I commonly see is not documenting serving sizes. So if you just write down all of your components, but you don't have serving sizes listed, we can't tell what you served. If you served that 1/4 cup of oat groats, and if that's going to meet the minimum, or you know, did you serve 1 ounces or 2 ounces of chicken fajita strips? We really need to see what is on there. I'm sorry, what was served on the production record, so that we can verify that meal pattern is being met. Sometimes I see things listed incorrectly. So weight for volume, where volume should be used. If you use spoodles, let's say, to dish up your fruit, and you know that you're using that 4-ounce spoodle and you write 4 ounces on there, just make sure that that's pretty clear to us as we are reviewing, because I'll be looking for it in cups. When we are looking at the components, we see that meat alternate is listed in ounces. We want to see the grains listed in ounce equivalents also. We prefer to see the fruits and vegetables listed in cups. So that can be down to the 1/8 of a cup. And we want to see that the milk is that 8 ounces or 1 cup. So if you have a method that you are doing, if, for example, you are using that spoodle and that's what you're comfortable with, that's great. Just make sure that you're consistent so that as we're reviewing, we can tell and make that determination quickly. A lot of times I will especially if we're doing menu reviews, I'll be looking for that product formulation statement. This PFS is for product formulation statement, or child nutrition level. We want to make sure that these products are crediting appropriately and meeting the meal pattern. And these, if you purchase a combination item, we're not going to have that recipe to be able to do the math for you. So if you're making your own pizza in-house, that's great. We can look at your recipe for the dough, calculate the ounce equivalents from the cups of flour that you're using, and we can see how much tomato sauce you're putting on, how much cheese you're using, so we can credit the vegetables and the meat alternate. But if you're buying pizza from somebody, they won't release that information to us. That recipe is proprietary, and they're not going to give us that kind of information. So the only way that we can make that credit is if there is either a child nutrition label, they have submitted their recipe to USDA and been given a more official approval. They can put a child nutrition label on their box and it tells you exactly what it credits for. Or you can request what's called a product formulation statement. So someone in their company is filling out a form that says they are certifying this information to be correct and true. And sometimes that's a higher up person in their office. Sometimes it's a dietitian, sometimes it's a food scientist, but basically we are asking them to break down their recipe themselves and give back to us a document showing what it credits for. So I have examples of those coming up in just a second. And then last, sometimes I see components counted in the wrong area, which can lead to maybe missing, that would look like a missing component on that day. So if, for example, you counted potato as your grain on your baked potato bar, and then I go look at your documentation and say, actually, potato counts as a vegetable, then if there was no other grain served, that would now go back to our missing component, and that goes to fiscal action. So just make sure that you are putting everything in the right spot, and again, taking credit for everything that you're serving. So this is an example of a child nutrition label. So if you are buying a product that has this on the box, that's wonderful. It's telling you exactly what you need to know. 1 3.5 ounce raw chicken drumstick provides 1.5 ounce equivalents of meat alternate for the child nutrition programs. You might have a combination item that would identify 2 things on there. It'll say how much meat alternate and how much grain you're going to get to credit from that product. And this would be an example of a product formulation statement. So as I said, they are working through this worksheet and telling you at the bottom, I certify the above information is correct and true, that a 4 ounce serving of the above product contains 1.5 ounces of equivalent meat alternate. So a lot of times manufacturers will have these on file and you simply just need to ask for them. But there have been cases where I have called a place like Advanced Pierre Foods or Michael Foods or Tyson, you name it, any of the big manufacturers, and they don't have these on file. All that you have to do is request it, explain what you're looking for, and they have been wonderful to work with. They will have it worked up in usually about 24 hours or less. I've gotten them as soon as an hour after I requested them. So all you have to do is call and ask. They'll either email it to you immediately or tell you what the timeline is to get it credited by their person, maybe their dietitian on staff, and then they'll email it to you. So definitely make sure that if you cannot credit the product yourself, that you're making sure that you have this kind of stuff on file. You can also get product information sheets for all the USDA foods that you serve. So if you have, in this example, you have ordered this USDA food, you got the pulled pork, it's cooked, it's frozen, and you notice that here it will tell you directly 2 ounces of this pulled pork and juice only credits as 1 ounce equivalent of meat alternate. And that's not always the case. You'll see some of these say, for example, cheese is very commonly 1-to-1. So 1 ounce of actual product weight credits as 1 ounce meat alternate, but it's not always the case. So make sure that when you are documenting on your production records that you are aware of what it actually credits as, because we don't want to see that in actuality, when we're doing your menu review, that it only credits for half of what you thought, and it'll be a finding for insufficient offering for either the day or the week. And if you're curious about what your products are and how to find these, when you go into Maps and you look at your USDA Foods orders, there's always a 6-digit number associated with that product. So you can find the item, they're listed in alphabetical order. So you would be looking for pork. And then if there are multiple options, say if pork has 3 different options, you just want to verify that you're looking at the right 6-digit number here. If you are going to serve your own product, not a USDA food or a combination food from a manufacturer, so let's say you're making spaghetti and you're using raw ground beef and you're just going to start cooking it. You want to make sure that you're looking at the food buying guide to make sure that you know what that yield is going to be. So cooked weight is not the same as what your raw product was. So in this example, for 30% fat, a 70-30 mixture, we're actually going to cook down to 0.7 is going to be our yield. So just make sure that when you are figuring out how many pounds of meat to cook, that you are factoring in for that yield that would be less. And then there are other things that don't credit as a 1-to-1. Like I mentioned, most cheeses will be 1-to-1, but yogurt, for example, if you're serving a 4-ounce yogurt, we're only going to get 1 ounce meat alternate out of that. So make sure that you're planning for that appropriately, that you're only going to get 1 ounce meat alternate from that cup. Another couple of things that we usually see on review that really start getting into the finer details and that are just often overlooked. So if you are doing offer versus serve at a school and you know that your kiddos only have to take half a cup of fruit with breakfast, it can be really easy to overlook that you still have to offer them 1 full cup. So especially with grab-and-go breakfasts, we see this, that maybe the bags are already pre-made. So you have a half a cup of fruit in that bag and 1 milk variety in that bag, but they still need to have the option for something else. So thinking about how you can make sure that they still get that variety and that they have the option to take another half cup if they want. You could leave the milk out of the bag and let them make the choice, or you could you could have half the bag set up with 1 type of milk and half the bag set up with the other type of milk, and making sure that they know which one is which, brown bag for chocolate milk or white bag for white milk, or however that works best for you. For the other half cup of fruit, you could have your bags pre-made and have just a fruit bowl next to everything so that they know they could take an extra package of dried cranberries, for example, or another small banana or small apple. So just making sure that as you are serving these meals, that you're still making sure that they get the offering that they are supposed to. And then one last thing I wanted to mention is that sometimes products don't credit. So one that we actually see a few times a year is a cheese sauce. So if you're making nachos, for example, on one day, make sure that the cheese sauce that you're getting is one that credits. There are creditable products and there are non-creditable products. So making sure that you know which product you have and that it has the supporting documentation. This could also be for bacon. Bacon does not credit, but there are turkey bacons that credit and come with appropriate documentation. So if you have any kinds of questions on what products credit, please just reach out. We love to hear from you guys. We definitely don't want things to go to fiscal action. So we try really hard to make sure that we train on these things. That's what I'm doing today, and giving good reminders that we don't want to see these come up in menu reviews and come up as findings. So unfortunately, some of these do go to fiscal action. I already mentioned that missing production records or meals served that are missing components will be mandatory fiscal action, but there are some findings that are discretionary. Discretionary would be like if you didn't meet the vegetable subgroup over the week, for example. We can look at what caused the problem. If maybe it was just a documentation error, you thought beets counted for red, orange, that's not a very egregious violation. Versus just skipping it altogether. There are some findings that may not be fiscal action the first time, but they might be required if they are repeated. So a repeat violation would be something that we've seen in reviews before that would be documented as either a previous corrective action or technical assistance. If we documented that, hey, we saw this, but we had a teachable moment and it's not necessarily a finding this time. If it came up on review again, the following review, it would be considered repeat. And at that point, depending on what the finding is, there are some that are required when repeated and others that are discretionary if repeated. And we don't like to take fiscal action. So we really want to help everybody have all the right answers and make sure that you have the support that you need. So again, real quick, if you have questions on something, maybe you have a 40-year-old bread recipe that you guys have passed down from head cook to head cook at the school and you're just not quite sure how it credits, or maybe you made a recipe modification, something changed and you have modified how much flour you're actually putting in at this point. If you, we love to hear from you, and if you want us to take a look at it and help you credit it, we are happy to do that. Or if you are struggling to find where to find all this documentation, you know, where to find those USDA product information sheets, or how to find the manufacturer that you're looking for, please just reach out and we would gladly help you. So again, you can look on the MAPS homepage for our contact information. That's a quick place to find it. Or you can also find it listed on the OPI School Nutrition Programs page. And we love to hear from you. So please reach out with any questions. Okay, so with that, are there any questions from any of you?